Welcome to Centre Court with thanks to OMF. Kick back and relax with an adjustable bed from Australian designed and owned OMF. Watch sport your way. And of course, Cobram Estate, Australia's most awarded extra virgin olive oil, grown, harvested and first cold pressed in northern Victoria. I'm Bianca Chatfield and Maddie Brown is alongside me for another edition of Centre Court. There's been plenty going on in Suncorp Super Netball. Let's get to the OMF overview. Watch sport your way and we'll take a look at what happened in round 11. Now, you really can't go past this first game that happened in Queensland. A huge win for the Firebirds by 8 over the West Coast Fever. Then, of course, the Thunderbirds, a huge win over the Melbourne Mavericks. The Vixens, another huge win over the New South Wales Swifts. Then things got a little bit tighter for Sunshine Coast Lightning, but they still did get the win over the Giants. So a few upsets, and why does that always happen? Off the back of a coach not being there, a new coach comes in and the big win happens. Here's the ladder two after round 11. The Vixens now sit out on top by 2 games. That's a huge advantage for them going into the last few rounds. Of course, then the Thunderbirds, Fever and Lightning. But the Firebirds, look at them. They've still got a way to disrupt everything that's happening, as do the Mavericks and the Swifts. And I'm sure they are going to be wanting to play out the rest of this season and make sure they do knock off some of those big teams. And in talking about the Firebirds, what did you think of that game, Maddie?
Oh, I mean, we obviously were preparing for the next game straight after and getting these messages through, and this is what the result is and this is where it's sitting. And I think it was a huge upset, but it just shows that you cannot get complacent in this league. You have to rock up every single week. You have to put your best performance forward because on any given day, it's anyone's game.
Well, the Firebirds, they knocked off the Adelaide Thunderbirds a few weeks ago. Then they took down the West Coast Fever on the weekend, and one of their youngest superstars is defender Isabelle Shearer, and she is joining us now on Centre Court. Isabelle, thank you so much for your time. Firstly, this is some of your stats from the game. You had to stand up against Janelle Fallon-Nemard, who we know is one of the best shooters, if not the best shooter in the league. 3 games, 4 deflections, 3 rebounds, 1 pickup, 81 SEN net points. Huge performance from yourself and your first start in Suncorp Super Netball. You've played 5 games in total. What's it been feeling like for you, and how did you feel after that game? Because that was one enormous effort.
Yeah, it was just amazing. It was awesome. We had nearly a sold-out crowd, which was awesome, and to get the win against Fever, such a high-ranking team, was just great. And personally, for that to be my first start and my first 60 minutes at SSN, that's something really special that obviously is a memorable moment forever.
Isabelle, we could see the emotion after the win. You know, it's been a huge week in the media, obviously change of coach, all of those things. Talk about how it felt, because it seemed like this huge weight had been kind of lifted off your shoulders and you played with a lot of freedom. Was that the feeling amongst the group?
Yeah, 100%. It's obviously been a tough few weeks with everything that's going on, but we really just wanted to go out there, play some good netball, enjoy ourselves, and I think we kind of proved to ourselves and to everyone else, but particularly to ourselves, that we have got what it takes and we're still in the fight. And now we're still in finals contention, which is just something that we might not have seen as an option a bit earlier in the season. So yeah, it was just an accumulation of so many emotions over the last couple of weeks, but to get that win was just tears of joy everywhere.
Katie Walker has stepped into that co-coaching role alongside Rosalie Jenke. But what's your experience been with Katie? And can you give us a bit of an insight into what it was like before the game, how she prepared you for the game to come up against Fever?
Yeah, I've known Katie and Rose for quite a long time, obviously coming through the Queensland pathway. So yeah, it's great to have them on board and we're super grateful that they're in with us. They've just been amazing. Katie's just gives us so much confidence, as you probably can see in all of our timeouts. And she gave me a lot of confidence and I felt really enabled going into the weekend to be able to put out a 60-minute performance. And Rose has done a lot of work with me defensively and I felt really enabled to come up against Janelle Fowler of all people, start at the top. But yeah, I was excited coming into it. I felt like I could give it a good shot. Grateful for it.
How have you found the first season? Because, you know, it's only until you start playing that you go, wow, it's a huge jump up from the reserves or even from State League. How has it felt for you? Have you noticed that massive shift?
Oh yeah, 100%. It's obviously just a level that you've never experienced before, and we try and replicate that at training. I was a training partner last year with the Birds, But yeah, you don't really get it until you get out on the court. So yeah, it was really good on the weekend to be able to experience that for the whole time and feel what a 60-minute performance feels like. And I'm just excited to keep getting out there as much as I can and keep improving and learning as I go.
And as you said, mathematically, you can still definitely make the finals. Coming up, you've got the Swifts, the Lightning and the Vixens. There's some big scalps that you could still take down. How do you focus your attention? Like when you're preparing for a game, you've got the Swifts this weekend. Obviously, the attack line looks different to Janelle Fowler-Nembhard, as a standing tall shooter. How do you prepare for coming up against this moving circle that the Swifts are going to have on offer?
Yeah, it obviously is quite a different matchup to someone like Janelle having that moving circle. And they've got Pilavi's just come in as their replacement player as well. So that's someone new to look at as well. But we're doing all of our PA during the week. We've practiced some scenarios at training. We're talking about it a lot. Remy, Ruby and myself are working a lot with Rose and trying to look forward to another 3 wins and another 3 good performances to finish the season off really strong.
And how have you, as a whole, like just being in a Suncorp Super netball environment, are you just like, you know what, I'm so ready to take my game to the next level. This is exactly where I need to be. Have you found some even growth areas for you personally, like whether that's mentally or physically? Where else can obviously you take your game to?
Oh yeah, 100%. And I feel like I have grown a lot over the course of the season and continue to keep growing over the last 3 weeks of this season. I feel like I've been able to grow a lot as a person outside of netball as well. It's obviously such a cool experience to be doing this as my job. But yeah, there's a lot of physical growth for me to do. There's a lot of learning technically and tactically for me to do, but I've got those goals set out for myself and trying to surround myself with people that can help me get there.
Now, we know the Firebirds have a mentor program as such with past Firebirds players. Who have you been matched with?
I've got Mel. She was a player back in the 2000s. She was a
you look like that, but that was when I was playing.
I was like, be careful what you say, Isabelle. Keep going.
I love it.
Go for it.
Go for it. Tell us all about it.
No, she's been amazing. She's come to a few home games. Even my mum's had chats with her and she loves it. And it's just so nice having this mentorship program. There's someone outside of the club that knows what it's like, has been there before, and you can kind of reach out to that person when things are going good, when things are going bad, when you just need another opinion. And so that has been really helpful for me.
Yeah, I absolutely love seeing how the Firebirds have wrapped their hands around all their past players. It's such a great idea. Isabelle, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time and we wish you all the best for the rest of the season. And, good luck. Go and take down some of those big teams so that the Firebirds can get themselves in that top 4.
100%. Thank you very much.
Well, that was the OMF overview. Kick back and relax with an adjustable bed from Australian designed and owned OMF. Watch sport your way. Time for the good oil. Thanks to Cobram Estate, Australia's extra virgin olive oil. Joining us again is SEN Netball commentator Georgia Rajic. Welcome, Georgia. What is the good oil you've got for us this week?
Well, I really want to talk about just the debutants this season and the players that we've seen come through, specifically players that, aren't teenagers. We saw Shani Lambden. She technically didn't make her debut this year. She debuted all the way back in round 7 in 2022, but she's had 2 games with consecutive 60-minute performances. And of course, that first 60-minute performance came against Liz Watson, and I thought she performed so well. So it's really great to see these players that have served as servants in their local pathways. We've seen Shani Lambden as the co-captain of the Vic Fury in previous years, has been a training partner for 5+ years, now being rewarded with really solid minutes and doing so well at this level as well.
Yeah, that's true. And we're seeing it more and more again, the more exposure that these players get to actually being able to play at that level. I mean, you can even turn your attention to players like Rudy Ellis, Kim Jenner, finally getting a decent amount of minutes and how much that is doing for their game.
It's crazy. And when you think about that benefit of having the 11th player, we've seen, looking at the stats before coming on today, 109 different players have been involved in the season so far, and that's actually the 3rd highest up to this point, into round 11. So we're having quite a few players, and looking at the past 2 years, we've had 30 debutants in the SSN. 23 are Australian pathway players. So we're seeing a lot of people come through, guarantee those minutes. Hard to think that someone like Lauren Frew wasn't playing last year in SSN, but now she's had so many minutes, and she's a bolted-on starter for the Thunderbirds.
And I mean, you talk about, where is the next generation of people going to come? Where is our next future diamonds? Well, that stat alone, having 23 Australian homegrown talent, the more they get exposure to it, the better they're going to be and the easier it's going to be to transition them straight to the top, isn't it?
Absolutely, and I think, you know, we're at the start of a new cycle when it comes, we talk about the diamonds, we talk about World Cups and Commonwealth Games, they're next to each other. We're in this fresh time now. So this is the opportunity for players that are coming through to get that valuable minutes to then be able to go up to the next level internationally.
Now, for those that haven't been paying attention to what happens outside of Super Netball, there is a Super Netball Reserves happening at the moment. It is a pilot kind of tournament. How's it been tracking so far?
It's been really interesting. So, of course, the games aren't being broadcast, but a lot of these players have come through the National Netball Championships and the Australian Netball Championships in years prior. We've also got players like Scarlett Jauncey, who's playing for West Coast Fever Reserves, who also played for the Black Swans in the First Nations for the First Nations team at the Pacific Netball Series a couple of weeks ago. And then you've got some brilliant players coming through. And then that's where you can see this progression and movement. And I really have to say, very specifically, if you're going to a game in the next couple of weeks and there is a reserves game playing, stick around and watch it. These games aren't being broadcast. This is your opportunity to say that you were there to see where the next generation came from, and that you can brag to all your netball friends as well that you knew them before they got that Suncorp Super Netball contract. Of course, there is the Adelaide Thunderbirds taking on the Vixens Reserves this weekend right after that game, and they're two historically fantastic teams when it comes to reserves and all these Australian Netball Championships as well. They are the next guns in our competition.
But talk us through some other big names that we've seen debut this year as well, because, you know, we talk about those youngsters that are coming through. That's initially where some of these players have started and come from. Who else has been impressed you this season?
Well, I can't get past Unique Pallavi's debut on the weekend. You know, last week she was a player of the tournament at the Pacific Netball Series. Now she comes on for the Swifts. I have personal beef with getting a negative Nissan net point score. However, I just felt, you know, in her 39 minutes on court, she was such a reliable option. She scored the most amount of goals of any of the Swifts shooting circle, but she just provided calm and composure and also scored 3 super shots. She really brought something different, and of course she spent so long in the Victorian pathway playing for City West Falcons, was a Collingwood training partner, was a Mavs training partner up until that debut for the Swifts, but now look at her and how well she played. She debuted so strongly. Of course, Swifts went down, but a lot of positives from that performance.
Do you expect her to get the start this weekend for the Swifts?
I actually do. I think she's going to be such a strong player moving forward, and I think, you know, she's rewarded for all these years of service she's had in the pathway, and of course, you know, her performance last year at the World Cup. This is her opportunity.
It sure is, and no doubt if you're getting along to watch the Super Netball Reserves, there'll be plenty of list managers out there watching as well in preparation for season 2025. I can't even believe I'm saying that right now, that it's not too far away. Now, that was the good oil thanks to Cobram Estate, Australia's most awarded extra virgin olive oil, grown, harvested and first cold pressed in Northern Victoria. Thank you so much for joining us, Georgia. It's now time to get to Maddies Minute. Over to you, Maddie.
Well, B, I want to bring something up that happened obviously in the last round. It was the Firebirds and Fever game, and it was Sue Gordian and Kath Cox during the play having quite a, you know, debate on air about the tone and the messaging of the officials towards some of our players. I'd love to hear what people think, because on social it's been going back and forth, you know, is it the players, is it the officials, where do we stand? But I think we are at a point in our game where we need to elevate our professionalism and respect. We need officials, we need players. Without either, we don't have a product. So maybe it is time that we start to talk to players with their first name. You know, Bianca.
So give me an example.
For instance, in the clash, you know, Bianca, can you please stand next to the goal attack? It's the penalty. Please set the penalty. Bianca, you're out of play quite a fair bit. Can we just rein that in a little bit?
Bianca, shut your mouth.
Yeah, Bianca, stop grabbing the goal shooter's dress. All of those types of things. Do you know what I mean? Like, can you please stand out of play? So then it's not, you know, goalkeeper. It's that tone. Yep. We talk about, you know, taking the messaging, not the tone. And in loud stadiums, it's really hard to obviously hear. But I think, you know, players need to respect the officials. Officials need to respect what the players are out there to do. So I think we're kind of at that point where we know who they are. They know who we are as players. So let's just, you know, put that elevation of professionalism. We see it in lots of other codes. Maybe that's where we need to go. Interesting.
I actually even really noticed against the Vixens and the Swifts how much the umpires were engaging with the players, and I thought it was really great, but I don't know if I really understood. I think they were using their first names. They weren't just referring to the position on court. And you would think the umpires would know their names.
Yeah, and it's a level of, you know what, like we're equals.
Yes.
You know, you see it in the footy, you know, you're just getting that messaging across. You're talking to each other with a massive level of respect. So I think it needs to go both ways. Not saying anyone's out of line, but there was a lot of debate on social media and during the game.
Interesting. We will keep an eye on that this weekend. And if you didn't notice it, really tune in when you're watching the games on the weekend. Well, round 12 is nearly here. So let's get into our round preview and let's have a look at the fixture to start with. It is the Thunderbirds and the Vixens. What a big game that is. To start us off for the weekend, the Mavericks and the Lightning, the Swifts and the Firebirds, and then the Fever and Giants. And we're going to concentrate on 2 games as we do each and every week. And this one, Maddie, you and I are heading over to Adelaide for this, the Thunderbirds and the Vixens.
I mean, both have really started to come into their own, I think, with form. The consistency between these both teams. Defensively, Thunderbirds are outstanding. Attacking-wise, Vixens are definitely the best. So that end of the court is always one that's hotly contested. It's a top-of-the-table clash. You know, if Vixens can win, they confirm that home major semi-final in Melbourne. Adelaide still chasing for that second chance to finish in that top 2. So lots to contend with. But I also think it's that fine-tuning of, you know, exactly where your game plan's at. We see the Vixens use the super shot. We see the Thunderbirds not use it. So, you know, will they have a change of tactics or are they just going to go in exactly how they have been and just see kind of what happens? Because it was only a 1-point deficit in round 2. But a lot has happened since round 2.
Oh, a lot has happened. I mean, this could be a grand final preview, and what an opportunity for both teams to be able to actually do that in the stadium where the grand final is going to be.
Huge.
But everything changes, and who actually knows what is going to happen. Another team who is fighting for that spot in the 4, that of course is the Sunshine Coast Lightning. They're heading down to Tassie and they're playing the Melbourne Mavericks. This is a Mavericks home game, the first one in Tassie for the Mavs. This is going to be an interesting one for me. I really think the Lightning are starting to continue to impress, especially defensively. Ava Black was great on the weekend. Then you've got Ash Irvin, Tara Hinchcliffe, who are performing outstanding week in, week out. And then you've got Courtney Bruce, who you bring into the mix at different stages. That's going to be a real challenge for the Mavericks in attack, whether it's Cardwell, Jock, Sinclair out there. I don't think they've quite got that rotation sorted. But if they can get that sorted and find their sweet spot, they can challenge the Lightning on the weekend. And obviously they really did miss Molly Jovic. And we believe she will be back. She was out with concussion, so that would be 12 days that she has to be out of the game. So fingers crossed she's back for the Mavs because she's so critical to help them, not just defensively, but also all her vision into Jock as well.
And Mavs just haven't been able to find that consistency of back-to-back wins. They obviously had another loss on the weekend, so they're due for a win in their win-loss record. So for Mavs fans out there, get excited. But this will pretty much sum up who are the top 4 and who's going to play it off for that premiership at the end.
Ooh, not long to go till round 12 gets underway, but it is time right now for our social scoop. So this week we have a question from Carolyn Murray. Now, Carolyn asks, why doesn't netball have a state of origin? It's a very good question because
it is.
The state of origin is in Melbourne this week, and we know how much Queensland and New South Wales love seeing those two sides go into battle. And we experience it at nationals, don't we? But then it kind of disappears and we all disperse in all different directions.
And it is really hard because, you know, a lot of players aren't actually playing at teams in SSN that, you know, are within the state that they're originally from. So, you know, we've kind of talked off air, you know, how would it be? You know, would it be a north versus south? Would it be an east versus west and maybe add in Adelaide over there to the west? Because then when you actually then look at the players that are within the league and where they would potentially go, you know, Perth would potentially get a Garvin and a Danelle Wallen back, like huge in that goal. So South Australia get Maddie Turner, Maddie Proud, Sarah Clow.
Yes.
There's a lot of factors of people coming back home. Victorian, we get Lizzie Watson back. So, you know, it would be interesting how it plays, but the hardest point is like, where do we fit this in our calendar with international? Something's got to give.
Something has to give, but I do like it. Thank you for sending that in, Carolyn, because I do think it's something to think about anyway. Potentially it's just, you know, one weekend where it can happen when there's no other netball and it's not disrupting SSN.
Or maybe in a year where there's no major tournament.
Yeah.
Maybe this is the year that we have a bit of an origin State of Origin.
Start the momentum. Well, that is all we have for you on Centre Court this week. Thanks, Maddie, for your time. We will see you on the weekend on your screens for Fox Netball. And big thank you to OMF, Watch Sport Your Way, and Cobram Estate Australian Extra Virgin Olive Oil. We'll see you next week.